Hello and welcome to Good Rests with Dan. On tonight's episode, we'll be going in the ins and outs of Australian rules football. This episode is designed to help you fall asleep and get to know Dan a little bit at the same time. Alright, so first off, we'll be talking about the basic rules, the 101 of Australian rules football, and then we'll move into the more advanced stuff. All right. I hope this puts you to sleep and you get to learn some AFL along the way. Okay, so the Australian rules football was first founded over 100 years ago. The Melbourne Football Club is the second oldest football club in the world. The game starts in a big oval ground, like a cricket ground. It has 4 quarters with 20 minutes each quarter. Each team plays with 18 players with 4 to 5 interchange players. If you kick a goal, which is if you kick it between the two large sticks on your opponent's side, it is 6 points. If you kick it between the two outer posts, it is 1 point. If you kick the ball and it hits the main post, the center post, it is 1 point, not play on. If your opponent touches the ball before the ball goes through the main post, it's called touched, and it is also only 1 point. If you kick the ball and it hits the outer post on the full, it is out of bounds and a turnover possession. To move the ball around, you can either use your feet by a foot, and if you kick the ball and it travels more than 15 meters and you mark it, then it's called, and you catch the ball, it is called a mark. When there's a mark, the umpire will blow the whistle and the opposition player has to stand on the position where the player marked the ball or caught the ball. The player is then allowed to have an unimpeded kick on the ground to wherever else he likes. Or, if he would like, he can run off and it's play on. You can also pass the ball by hand. Now, you cannot throw the ball. To pass the ball with your hand, you have to do what's called a handball, where the ball is resting in one hand and you make a fist with the other and you punch the ball. Kind of like an extreme volleyball serve, but underarmed. If the player runs more than 15 meters, kind of like basketball, he must bounce the ball. Otherwise, it is traveling and the play is turned over to the opposition. Players can also tackle, and if you have the ball and you've had a moment to release the ball, but you don't, and you get tackled, it is a turnover. If you take possession of the ball and you immediately get tackled, the umpire will rule it as not having prior opportunity and it will be a ball up, kind of like basketball. A ball up happens whenever a player is tackled and the ball cannot be released. They do it on the spot of where the tackle happens. Ball ups also occur at the start of every quarter. If a player commits an infringement, a gross infringement, aka they step over the mark when a player has marked the ball, then it is a 50-meter penalty. If the ball, okay, so that is probably the 101 of Australian rules football. Oh, trying to think. There's no additional time in Australian rules football, so there can be draws in regular season. Though in finals, they now do additional time. Fun fact, I think it was the 2012 grand final, they did not have a draw rule because, 6 points there's so many points are scored. Usually it's around 100 points per team for every game. So they never introduced a draw rule. And This happened in the 2012 grand final. I think Collingwood versus St Kilda from memory. Or was it 2008? Anyway, and they had to. The game ended. They didn't do extra time that day. They had to bring everyone back the next week to play the final. After that fiasco, they introduced the additional time rule. Okay, let's go into some of the more minutiae of the sport. Okay, so two players. I'm not sure I think of something that's a little bit more interesting. I went through the 101. Okay, so players use a combination of handballs and kicking to move the ball around. A professional player, can handball the ball around 15 meters or so, and they can kick it over 50 meters, or sometimes up to 60 meters. It's like, I don't know, 100 yards or something, a long, long way. This is why Australian rules footballers make very good punters in the NFL. Any other weird rules? Okay, if a player gets tackled, but the tackle starts on the neck or above, it's called head high contact or high contact. Then if that happens, then a free is given, and then the opposition player must stand on the mark where the free is given, and the player who got the high tackled, they have a free kick, same as a mark, unimpeded kick from that point. If you have the ball and that player ducks into you, that is now assumed as prior opportunity. So if you get the ball, you try to duck into the opposition to draw a free kick, aka you're trying to get a free kick in an ideal spot. If the umpire spots that, they'll register that against you as a prior opportunity, and you have a free kick against you if you duck in. If the umpire thinks you're ducking into the player to pull a free kick, garner a free kick. You cannot trip players at all. You can kind of punch players. So you can do what's called like a little jumper punch, but you're not allowed to, so you can grab like their jerseys and you basically, you're not allowed to extend your arm too much. So you can grab the jerseys and you can give them a little jab on the shoulder and the chest. You're not allowed to punch the gut with an open arm or a full swing, and you're not allowed any head-high contact. Even if you do the smallest little tap on the face, or forceful, you can just little love tap. But if you give like a proper momentous swing, then you have a free kick against you for head-eye contact. One of the coolest aspects of Australian rules football is what's called the specky or the hanger. Now, the specky or the hanger is a catch or a mark where the player jumps on top of the other shoulders to catch the ball. So this is a fully legal play. You can jump and use your feet. You can do whatever you want. If you jump on top of someone else's back, however you like, and you catch the ball in the same movement, then that is considered a mark, and it's one of the most spectacular parts of our beautiful game. Now, if you try to do said specky or hanger, or basically a long time aerial mark, I'm just trying to think of other pseudonyms to call it, and you do not touch the ball, this is considered This is considered a hindrance against you, and you have a free kick for your opposition if you don't successfully touch the ball when you're going for a hanger. When you're trying to catch the ball, you're not allowed to push the opposition in the back. This is called pushing in the back. Absolutely. What you can do, you can hold your position with your arms. So what you will often see, if there's a fly ball coming into the forward, you'll see a defender or forward, whatever is the case, they'll hold their arm against the opposition's back, and as long as they don't fully extend their arms in a pushing motion, you're allowed to have contact on the back. And often, what a good player will do, if a ball is coming in long at the back, they'll push the opponents forward a little bit with their strength, and then they'll make a last minute readjustment to the back to catch the ball and basically push their opponents under the ball without actually pushing them in the back. So, using your strength, using your forearms, extending your forearms, but without doing a pushing motion. If you do a pushing motion in the back, it's a free kick against you. Okay. There's a new out of bounds rule. So you've come in to watching AFL football at a very good time. So the old AFL rule, basically, the ball could go out of bounds no matter which player kicked it or handballed it. It was a boundary line throw in. So a boundary line throw in is when the umpire grabs the ball and he throws it backwards over his shoulder. Basically, he's trying to do a blind throw in. Imagine if you're trying to do a blind throw in from the boundary line back into play. So he's doing that throw that goes up in a parabolic arc. Big throw. I'm trying to think of something that's analogous to it. Think of like a bouquet toss. A bouquet. So he does a bouquet toss of a Australian rules football to get it back into play. Yes. So, but the rules have now changed. So what the rules are? There's two 50-meter arcs. So there's a center, and then there's a 50-meter arc on each side before the goals. If you kick the ball, say you're team A, and you kick the ball into team B's 50-meter arc and it goes out of bounds, because that's in your attacking arc, it is a boundary line thrown by the umpire. If you're in team A and you kick the ball and it goes out of bounds and is outside of either of the arcs, then it's a turnover possession now. So much like almost every other sport you've seen, if you kick the ball and it's not inside your attacking arc, it's a turnover possession. There's only one other wrinkle to that. If you are in your defending arc and you deliberately handball your ball over the line, as in there's not sufficient pressure, and you deliberately handball it over the line, then that actually will be a turnover, and it's called insufficient intent. It's a strange game, isn't it? And so much intent reading in this game. With along those lines, if you are defending, if you're the team that is defending, and you have possession of the ball, and a opposition comes to give you pressure, and you handball the ball over your point line without sufficient pressure, it's also a turnover. And funny thing is, if you're a defending player, you cannot score own goals. You can only score own points. So if you have the ball and they try to kick the ball through the goals and you grab the ball, and in the process of grabbing the ball, you fumble it and it goes through the middle sticks, aka the opposition's goal, as long as you've touched the ball before it goes through the middle, it's still only a point. So to get 6 points, you need that clean possession without the opposition touching it. What often happens sometimes is if there's a kick for goals through a mark or free kick, and you're standing the mark and they've kicked the ball, if there's a finger on the ball from the opposition before it goes through, then that is only a point. There's a review system to check such instances to make sure it wasn't touched before it goes through the goals. According to AFL has an interesting array of body types. Unlike other sports that have one or the other, Australian rules football requires all body types and athletic abilities. First off, you have what's called the ruckman. The ruckmen are like your basketball-like player, super tall, almost always over 6'6". And when the ball gets thrown up, or there's that ball up at the start of the quarter, or after a tackle, or after the ball up happens at the start of each quarter, or if there's an in dispute tackle where the umpire has to also throw up, or when the umpire throws it back in from the boundary line. These two ruckmen engaged in a contest to tap it down to the midfielders, just like basketball, really. Just think of it as exactly the same as a basketball, at the start of a basketball game when they do the toss up there. You're trying to get that position and tap to your player. Those players obviously quite tall. And then around the ruckman, you obviously have your midfielders. So there's two types of midfielders. There's probably your shorter insider midfielders. These are the ones the ruckman's tapping to. These are players that have explosive power, really good handball ability, able to extract the ball to either kicking it into the forward line or handballing it to the outside to where the wingman will be. So wingman will be outside of the pack so you have the ruckman, below the ruckman's feet are the midfielders, and then on the outside is the wingman. So the midfielders often try to handball it to your wingman. Your wingmen are fairly tall, but not too tall. They need really good cardio ability. They're running on the outside, what's called outside runners. The wingmen probably usually around about 6'2", 6'1", tall, but still have some maneuverability. Okay, and then in your forward line, most teams have a structure where you have what's called a key forward. Your key forward will be a similar size to your ruckman, but they're specializing in catching the ball. So obviously, you say your ruckman taps it to your midfielder handballs it to your wingman kicks it inside your attacking 50, and then ideally you have your key forward, which is your biggest, strongest, best mark player, comes in and jumps over everyone and catches the ball for a mark. And if they catch the ball on the full without anyone else touching it, they'll have an unimpeded kick for goal if they're in range. Often, though, the defenders are good enough to spoil the ball if the kick is not accurate enough. And if that happens, often the ball spills down to the other players. So this is where you have your what we basically would say secondary midfielders, or your crumbing forwards. So you have a whole bunch of smaller forwards. The big key forward will jump for the ball and then often would hit the ground. And then your smaller forwards would ideally pick up the ball at that stage. The best players can predict where the ball will fall after the ball has been spoiled from a marking contest. And then they will mop up the ball and ideally kick a goal from a marking contest if it isn't clearly caught by the key forward. Much similar, obviously, to defense. Defenders often aren't trying to catch the ball when the ball comes into their defensive 50. They try to punch the ball out. So if a player tries to catch the ball, and so the defenders are trying to punch the ball so they do not get the mark. Defenders aren't really trying to outmark another player. They're just trying to stop the opposition from catching the ball in their forward 50, because if a player catches the ball in the forward 50, they'll have that unimpeded shot on goal. And if you're versing a good key forward or good small forward or good medium forward, whoever catches the ball, any forward can catch the ball. Obviously, any player can catch the ball. Just the key forwards are the most likely to catch it because of the biggest and usually the biggest and the strongest marking ability. Then you're just trying to punch the ball to get the ball away, and the defenders are often trying to either get the ball to outside runners or trying to work the ball backwards deeper into the defense to give themselves time to spot up a accurate kick. As you can imagine, so the forward lines it consists of players that are small forwards, key forwards, and then there's often players that are hybrid players, so players that say 6'4", 6'3" maybe. So if the ball comes in, they can still jump and they're great. They can still probably catch the ball. Sometimes even outmark key forwards or key defenders. And so obviously some of the most sought after players in the Australian rules league are players that can not only able to are good below their feet, but able to go forward or go back and work as versatile defenders or forward line players. So that being said, the players that are in the guts of the engine, the midfield, that are around the ruck, they usually get the most of the ball, because obviously the ball, every time there's a tackle or throw in or a quarter starts, they are around the ball, and they often get the most possessions, and they usually get the most accolades, and the most sought after, most well paid players are usually these ones. That being said, so if you're extremely good key forward and you can kick multiple goals, and then those players are also extremely well sought after. Okay. Anything else? If a player is, say, injured, punched in the face, whether it be scratch, punch in the face, got a blood injury, a blood injury will require game to be stopped, and the person who has bloody face or any type of blood is immediately taken off the ground. Now, if a player gets injured, unlike soccer, if a player is injured, like minorly injured, that isn't a head injury, the play will just keep going. The game does not stop for injured players. So a player could have a dislocated shoulder, they pulled their hamstring, the game will just keep going, does not stop. The only time the game stops if someone is injured is if it's a head injury. Didn't used to be the case a few decades ago, or even a decade ago. But yes, a lot of CTE stuff, and they now, if there's ever suspected as a head injury, they will pause the games. Also, if the injury is bad enough, say an ACL is done, and the player is, and then medical staff need to come onto the ground, and if the ball is, so honestly, like even if a person say does their ACL, even if medical staff are with them on the ground, as long as the ball isn't near the medical staff on the field, they will still keep playing. It's only when those two, when there's an issue, if the play is near the medical staff, then they'll stop play. And if the injury is bad enough where they can't get the player off easily, aka they need a stretcher, then the medical staff will tell the umpire to pause the game. Okay, so the last thing is the scoring can look a little bit confusing because you get 6 points for a goal and you get 1 point obviously for a behind. The scoring can often look like this: 8. Okay, wait, let me do math on the fly. Let's just do it easy. 10, 6, 66. So obviously 10 is 10 goals, 10 times 6, 6 points for a goal, 60 points. And then the second number is the points, 6 points. And so the third number is the total score: 10, 6, 66. 10 goals, 6 behinds or 6 points. And the total score is 66. There is breaks. So after every quarter, there's a small, I think, 15-minute break, maybe 10, 15-minute break. And at the halftime, there's a longer 25, 30-minute break between, and then in the grand final, it's much longer for halftime show. Australian rules football is one of the most watched sports in attendance-wise in the world. I think it's 4th or 5th. Pretty crazy for a country. Actually, funny thing is Australian rules football is popular only in some of the states. So the three most popular states in Australia are Queensland, New South Wales, and Victoria. Australian rules football isn't popular in New South Wales or Queensland. Rugby, or what's called rugby league, is the most popular there. So Australian rules football is only very popular in Western Australia, Northern Territory, South Australia, Victoria, primarily Victoria. It used to be called the Victorian Football League, Tasmania, and that's it. So not all the states, actually. All the states do have teams, though. There are, how many teams are there now? I'm going to quickly Google how many teams we got. I think there's 20 teams now. Western Australia has 2. They are actually, we'll go into Australian rules we'll go on into the teams and why which team is good and what. I'll explain teams in the next episode. I hope this one has allowed you to fall asleep. And yeah, hope you enjoyed slowly learning about Australian rules football from this episode. All right, that is all.